Bryce Lipscomb, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, man, I almost canceled. I was like, there's nothing going on today, and there's not a whole lot to talk about. So I'm like, we might as
Absolutely
well.
nothing. Was the most boring day ever. Nothing happened. It just, yeah, I mean, I get it.
Yeah, let's start there. What the fuck, man? Like, for those who are watching this and don't know what day it is, this is when Elon has tweeted out, his major beef with Trump about a bunch of stuff, culminating with the tweet that broke the internet, basically calling our sitting president a pedophile and on the Epstein list. So,
That was, you have to admit, that was fucking awesome. He just dropped a nuclear bomb and Twitter went fucking wild. But here's the thing, right? All of these influencers that Trump has, the turd, DC Drano, all of them, they're
Gunther
not leaving
Engelman.
X. Gunther, and they're not leaving X anytime soon. Why? Because these guys make a shit ton of money off the platform. So while they're gonna, they might bitch and complain a little bit, but if you look at the turd, I mean, he hasn't really said anything. He's been pretty fucking quiet. I think all of them are waiting to see what happens because none of them want to attack Elon right out the gate. The only person, and watch it because it's going to happen. The only person who will attack Elon, because she's consistent no matter what she does, is going to be Laura Loomer. She'll go
For
after him. She
sure,
won't
for
give a
sure.
shit. Like she's the one of the only Trump people that I still have any respect for because no matter what goes on, she stays the same. She doesn't play the game. She's with Trump. That's it. No other person. She's gonna, fuck Kennedy, fuck this person, fuck that person. She does not give a rat's ass, and I respect that.
Yeah, I do. And I think that this is a great opportunity if everybody pays close attention to all the noise that's going on, is to look at who remains consistent and who is clearly grifting and who's playing to the crowd. Also, it's really fun to just watch the sweat drip from the MAGA people's forehead, trying to figure out whether you're going with mom or dad in the divorce. It has been delicious to watch for me.
Well, and watch as they play the mental gymnastics of all of this stuff. Like they're gonna be. I was never with Elon. I never trusted him, and you're already seeing it a little bit. It's like I never trusted him. He's a technocrat. He's all of this, and it's like, dude, you could literally go down the list, and we could pinpoint when you say Elon's great, Elon's this, or the stuff that was going on with Tesla. Like this is why I left MAGA and Maha. There is no there really is no consistency in their beliefs in what they say. All they give a rat's ass about is what does Kennedy say and what does Trump say, and we're going to defend those two things to like the death. Doesn't matter if it makes us look like jackasses. We're just going to defend it.
Yeah, it's been a weird thing to watch. And this is where I've been struggling. I think you've probably seen my stuff. Like I'm super consistent. I've been holding the same philosophical position, being an anarchist, supporting the non-aggression principle for,
Hmm.
many decades. And it's been very weird to be in that situation and being principled because I've watched the flip, right? Like every time, like you said, one of these figureheads who's leading the movement says something, you have all these people getting in line to just justify whatever they say, no matter how crazy, and to a point where I've watched the MAGA movement, and it's like it's literally state socialism at this point,
Oh,
right? Like this
100%.
this is like I've always described Trump as a populist authoritarian leftist, and people think I'm being hyperbolic, and people think that I'm being silly, and it's like no, this is actually, if you actually don't listen to the rhetoric, you don't listen to the him hugging flags on stage and all this performative bullshit, you actually look at what his policies are. It's like tariffs, right? Like tariffs are leftist trade policy. They're protectionist trade policy. It's from the progressive era. Um,
So on the tariff thing, I supported tariffs early on, and the reason why is because I have two favorite presidents, and that's Warren Harding and Calvin Coolidge. And if you look at Calvin Coolidge and you look at Warren Harding, both of them used tariffs, and those tariffs worked. What I didn't take into
Define
consideration.
words.
So Basically, what Harding did was that he decided that I want to protect the American farm industry. Um, when after World War One happened, the economy back in Europe was starting to pick up, and they were selling goods all throughout the world at a very cheap price. What Harding wanted to make sure was is that the farmers in America came first. Harding ran on a completely America first basis. In fact, he was really the first president, though it was used by Woodrow Wilson. He was really the first president to hone in what the America First message meant, which was basically we're going to put everything that's American first. And so he put strategic tariffs. He called it strategic tariffing. Basically, if it's made here in America, we're going to put a tariff on the foreign counterpart. If it's not made in America or that person needs this certain element or whatever, we're not going to tariff anything because we don't want to ruin small businesses. What Trump has done is just blanket tariffs, and blanket tariffs do not work. Fortunately, we don't live in the 1920s anymore, where the American manufacturing was 80% of our workforce, where we made everything here, where we were self-sufficient. We're not self-sufficient anymore. So the idea that we're going to have tariffs and all these jobs are going to come back is just crap. And it really took Austin Peterson kind of having this come to Jesus moment with me, like kind of shaking me and going, "What the fuck? You're smarter than this." To make me realize, like, yeah, shit, we don't have this manufacturing here anymore. We don't have any of those things, and all it is that it's a tax on us. These jobs are not coming back. They're overseas, and they're paying not even half of what they have to pay here. They're paying 80% less of what they would have to pay an American worker. Those jobs are not coming back. Trump likes to tout that shit, but it's never going to happen. So the tariffs in modern era, they just don't work. We don't have the manufacturing force for that to make sense. And let's be real, Americans aren't working in the manufacturing industry. They're not.
Yeah, clearly. I guess my point was is like if I'm approaching this from an economics and a ethical standpoint, working for me does not mean communist central planning of markets, right? Because you can say, oh, we're protecting American industries, but it's like why, right? So America isn't a thing; it doesn't exist philosophically, right? Like it's literally a line in the dirt. Some bureaucrat, drew and said, "We're going to defend these borders," right? Like this is not private property. This is not anything. Like it doesn't exist. In the real world, so I'm a philosophy nerd, right? So like, there's no
Mhm.
thing called America, right? There's just people and objects and animals and birds and shit in the universe. America is an idea. That's all it is. It's like this. There's this line in the ground that says we control everything that goes on within this, and we can murder you if you disagree. That's all America is conceptually. Um, and where I come from is like we should have a free trade, right? So we should have people like you and me, if we want to
Yeah.
engage in a transaction, we should freely be able to do so, regardless of what arbitrary lines we might be existing within, right? And so I don't ever look at anything like working or not working. I get it, but to me, it's so collectivist, right? It's like
Oh, sure.
it's something that just like I said, I've been this way for a very long time. So excuse me. I hear people that make those arguments, and I'm like, fuck you. Like, who do you get to be to say I'm going to dictate via force, like what rate somebody can charge somebody for a good or a
FDR.
service? And well, yeah,
FDR
FDR was a
created all those things. I mean, if you look at, if we go back, and there have been presidents who have tried to rein in the state. Like there have been presidents that have done a really good job at trying to cut back on the federal government. Calvin Coolidge was one of them. Warren Harding was one of them. Jackson, a Democrat, but a libertarian at heart. If you look at the things that he did, going against the central banks, ending the debt, kind of stating that, hey, listen, the state shouldn't own the banking industry. We shouldn't be subsidizing big banks. We shouldn't have a centralized bank. All of that kind of went out the door when FDR became president. And this push towards federalism and collectivism became the new thing. Like his New Deal was a collectivist bullshit socialist bill. It told farmers what they could and could not sell. It told farmers what they could and could not grow. It told them what the prices were going to be. Basically he turned the American economy into this Godzilla. And when you give Godzilla or a Leviathan, for instance, power, right? They don't give that power back. It just keeps growing and growing and growing bigger. And that's all we've been doing since FDR. We've been growing the collective government bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And we've told ourselves it's for the good of the nation, right? It's for our good. Like if we didn't have these things, we wouldn't have roads, but that's bullshit. We would have roads. There are ways in which private entities can come in and build roads, take care of the police department, take care of the fire department. We have these things. Are there places in which, those fire departments aren't great? Yes. But you only have two options, this particular company and the regular fire department. When we're talking about what you're talking about, or what I'm talking about, or Rothbard, for instance, anarcho-capitalism, we're saying no, 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 no. We're going to have a multitude of competition. So let's have five, let's have six, let's have 5 or 6 different fire departments and police departments, and whichever one you want to go to, that's the one that you're going to go to. And this is where I don't understand, like, Cali Means, for instance. I really started getting
Can't
disheartened
stand
with the
that dude.
Maha movement when Cali Means started to join. And this guy is just anti-free markets. And this is the whole thing with Maha, and this is the whole thing with MAGA. Well, we don't have a free market, so we can't. No, fuck that. Then let's create the free market. You don't want a free market because all of these people, what you don't recognize is that Cali Means has businesses that are a part of the government, and he gets money from the government, subsidies from the government, to continue to do what he's doing. And he's made friends with people in pharma. He's made friends with people in these, basically, in these realms. And they all look out for each other. There's just this crony capitalism gone awry. Nobody in government wants free markets because nobody in government wants their people to have to compete with anybody. When you have to compete, prices go down. What happened when you split up AT&T and Verizon, and then all these other little splinter things came out? You had Sprint, you had T-Mobile. Prices started to go down. Verizon and AT&T got freaked the fuck out. They're like, holy shit, all of a sudden data is now, it's 100%. You have 100% data. Used to charge you for data. You remember that with those little, when the
Oh
first
yeah,
iPhone came out, data
oh
was
yeah,
so fucking expensive. Now you can get a plan where you're paying like $50 a month and you have unlimited data. That's the free market. What we have now is an illusion of a free market, right? We think, oh, there's Sprint, there's T-Mobile, there's all these things, but when you start following the money, you start to see, well, no, Verizon and AT&T are have their hands in it. But let's go even further than that. What do you find? You find 3 companies in particular. And these 3 companies are destroying capitalism as we know it. Vanguard, BlackRock, and State Street. They own
yep,
everything. Whether people want to
everything.
admit this shit or not, they own everything. Their hands are in everything. They're pushing DEI, they're pushing all the things, and they're doing it for a reason. If I can get you to feel like, and let's say you're a minority, if I can make you feel like white people are against you, you're going to be so focused on the fact that your economics is so bad because of the fact that you're a minority. You're going to completely ignore the fact that, well, no, we've defunded your education system. We've taken all the banks out of your area. We've completely demolished any ability for you guys to earn any types of capital, and we're taxing you to death without you actually knowing it. You think you're getting all this free money, but you're actually getting taxed for it. And then we're going to put a caveat on it, right? We're going to put, you can have all this free shit, but the minute you start making a certain amount of money, you got to give it all back. You're going to create a dependency group. That's exactly what the Democrats did when they created the Civil Rights Bill, which was, listen, I agree, everybody should be equal. But if you follow natural rights, which is the right to liberty, the right to life, and the right to property, all of that shit's covered. But what we did was we said, no, these certain groups, they need protection. And if you look at from the start of the Civil Rights Bill in the 1964 to now, Black people actually started losing wealth at a massive rate prior to when there was tons of Black millionaires. What happened? The state got involved. The state realized I can turn these people into dependents, make them dependent on me. They'll vote for me, but we got to keep them where they are. We can't let them grow any higher because if they grow any higher, they won't vote for us anymore. It's people don't
It's like that
realize that government's
LBJ
a
quote,
fucking illusion.
the
Yes.
very famous LBJ quote, which is crazy offensive. I'm not going to say it here, but yeah, that's the mindset.
Yeah. People are blind to the fact that government, at least this government, is basically effectively trying to keep them where they are. They don't want you gaining money. They don't want you going any higher than you are. They need you to stay at a certain level so that they can control you. What anarcho-capitalism says is fuck the government. We don't need it. We can barter with each other. We can come up with better ways in order to live with each other in a community. Fuck society, because society doesn't exist. It's a construct. We can create communities amongst ourselves where we can barter, or we can trade, or we can do anything on an open market and take the government out of it and open the market. And people are like, well, you're going to create monopolies. You're going to do that. No, we have monopolies because of government. Government creates monopolies.
Well, number one,
Government
government
allows
is the
a
largest
monopoly.
monopoly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And people just gloss over that fact that we are living in the ultimate, the limit case of a monopoly.
I mean, people shit on me all the time right now because they said that, I've flipped rep from Kennedy to Trump and all that. And I believed that Kennedy was going to do what he said he was going to do.
Rookie
I
mistake.
believed that shit.
Rookie mistake.
And that was a rookie mistake. And then I believed him when he said Trump was different. Trump was changed. And I'd heard I went to go see Trump talk, and he was talking differently than he did before. So I thought, what the fuck? Why not? Right? I'm not going to vote for Chase Oliver. I'm sorry, he's not going to win. Oh, am I going to vote for Kamala, or am I going to vote for Donald, or am I not going to vote for at all? And so I decided I want to vote. I'm going to vote for Trump. It didn't take me long, a little less than 100 days, to see that nothing was changing. And if you're not going to change it in 100 days, you're not changing shit, period. All these people that have said, give it time, give it time, give it time. And,
Trust the plan.
trust the process. It's 5D chess, 18 million D chess. Trust the process. Dude, if it's not going to happen in the first 100 days, it's not happening at all. And so I just kind of woke up and realized it's all shit. You
Yeah,
put your faith into, yeah.
that's originally why I booked you, man, because I saw this sort of like I don't know if you're having conflict within yourself or something, but I was seeing, I kind of looked through your tweet history and you're kind of just like searching for the bullseye. And I think you finally landed, man. And I want to say it's a freeing place to land, right? When you understand and you can fully accept for once that government is not going to improve anything. It's not going to help your life. It is only going to make things worse. And that's the end of the story. It's like, man, there's something freeing in that. Because I think the angst that people have, because by the way, watching Twitter today, it is nothing but angst. People are tweeting in all caps, what the fuck is going on? Everybody stop, pick up the phone, Eli. Like it's just people are melting down. And I'm just, kind of I'm at peace. I'm over here laughing because like, of course I knew. Look through my Twitter history. I've been kind of taking some victory laps lately because I took a ton of shit. Because I was saying this was going to happen on the campaign trail. I'm like, guys, this is going to fail, and this is exactly why it's going to fail. I predicted the Elon Trump divorce way back. I don't even know when. It was a very long time ago. I'm like, this is not going to end well, and everyone's like, you're just black pilled. You're just being pessimistic. And it's like, dude, I've seen a few things. I know there's a way it's going to end, and here we are. Like we're here. And my question to everybody right now is, okay, the Republicans aren't going to cut government. Right. So this is the big shot. Everyone was banking on Trump to cut the budget. We're going to be fiscally responsible. We're really going to come restore sanity. And he's just completely off the reservation. So, OK, nobody's going to do it, which means de facto the USD is going to die. Right. We're going to have a currency crisis. The dollar is going to implode. It's the world's reserve currency. The entire global system is going to collapse. OK, what now?
If
What
we're
comes
being
next?
honest, though, the US dollar is already collapsed. It means
Correct.
nothing. It's backed by nothing. It's a piece of paper, and the only reason it has value is because we give it value.
It's
We say this
because
little
no,
piece of
no,
paper.
no, no. It is because people believe it has value.
Yes,
And so this is
yes.
the important thing to know. And this is the important thing I keep trying to point out to folks on Twitter is look at the bond market. The bond market is starting to crack. That's where you see people bailing out of treasuries. They're saying, oh, you're actually not going to cut spending, which means that the Fed's going to come in, going to fire up the money printer. We're going to continually dilute the value of the dollar. And when I take out a bond issuance, when it matures, I'm going to get paid back in dollars that are worth a shit ton less than when I took it out. I demand a higher yield, right? That's what's going on, right? So yes, it doesn't have any intrinsic value, but the only value that it does have, the only stability we have in our society is the fact that people believe that it has value now and will into the future, and that belief is going away.
I
Oh,
think what people did
you,
you lose me for a minute?
it says you had an incoming call and your recording stopped. Are you still showing recording?
I'm showing it on my end. Are you
Okay, I
sorry
think
about that? I ended up getting a phone call from my mother.
no worries. I think we're still good. I
Yeah,
think.
we
I
are.
think. I think. Okay, cool. So
I'm
we'll
showing the
continue
recording
out.
on my end.
I will just edit that
So
out of there. No big deal.
here's the thing.
Wait. It says their recording has stopped, but everything. Oh god. Okay. All right, you're back.
Wow. All right, that's fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun to edit out, but whatever. We can
Oh,
do that.
I'm
Keep.
sorry, dude.
No, it's all good, man. Keep going. I had this happen a bunch of times. It's no big
So
deal.
I think we need to look at like the party system, right? The party system wants to blame everything for for the reasons of inflation, except what really is going on, and that is the printing of money.
Well,
We are printing more money.
hold. Time out. Time out. The econ nerd in me has to hit the pause button, dude. That is what inflation is. And so, by definition, for people that don't know, inflation refers to the money supply, how big or small it is. Inflation means you're inflating the amount of currency in circulation. So, when people say inflation, they typically mean price increases as measured by CPI or the PPI or one of these other things, right? So, I want to be very clear here, right? Rising prices are a consequence of inflation.
Of inflation.
Yeah.
But people don't recognize that, nor do they understand what inflation really is, and what is the cause root of inflation. You ask Republicans, they're going to give you a litany or a long list of things that don't actually have to deal with inflation. We just said it right here. Inflation is overprinting, and the government is continuing to do that. The Federal Reserve is printing at a rapid rate. They're not slowing down. Anytime that there's a problem, we're going to print more money. That's going to solve the problem. But inflation goes up and up and up and up and up and up. And if you look from the 70s to where we are, inflation has gotten out of hand to where here's what I see. Hyperinflation is just around the corner. We are headed in the route of Argentina.
Yep.
And my question to America is when are you going to wake up and recognize that we need to stop this now? Or are we going to get to the point where you get that 60% poverty rate, where you get people not being able to afford any type of housing, and then you finally decide, okay, libertarianism, anarcho-capitalism is the right path now, when it's too little, too late. I mean, Javier Milei is doing a wonderful job in Argentina, but he has a lot of shit that he has to do. And the poverty rate is still pretty high. He's been bringing it down a little bit, but the poverty rate is still up there. And my thing to people is, how long are you going to continue to trust government to correct this when government has continuously shown that it can't and it won't? Somewhere along the line, I've started realizing, and this was just reading Rothbard, and one of the biggest, I think the biggest impact, one of the books that had the biggest impact on me was the Libertarian Manifesto. And it basically throws it all out there. The government can't do shit for people. The government is designed in order to perpetrate the state so that certain individuals can keep all of the goods and all of the money and keep all of the things and keep their group happy. But the multitude is always going to suffer. But what is government really good at doing? They're pinpointing you and me against each other. That's where the
Yes.
government is brilliant. they're going to turn us against each other. So whether it's transgendered crap or gay crap, all of that stuff, they're going to turn you and me against each other. And we're going to play this culture war game of, oh, this person's destroying America. This person's destroying America. No, 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 no. The government has already destroyed America. America's done for. Now you got to ask yourself, are you ready to just scrap it and replace it with free market capitalism, where everything is an open competition and where we allow entities to come in and build roads, build schools, run our school systems? If you look, why is it private schools are doing better than public schools? Why do private schools have a better rate on the whole? I'm not saying every single one of them, but I'm saying if you look at the graduation rate, private schools have a higher graduation rate than public schools. Why?
Yeah, it's simple because they're subject to the market forces of competition. Public schools don't compete with anybody. You're forced to send your kid there unless you're wealthy enough to afford a private school. Full stop.
People don't understand that. They think that the Department of Education is a good thing. And when you ask them, how long has the Department of Education been? And I talk to everybody about this. Oh, it's been around since no, 1980 is when this thing came along. We
Reagan.
didn't have the Department of Education until 1980. What happened prior to that? We had the number one education system in the world. What happened? The federal government got involved. If we really look at it and we really diagnose the issues, it's every time the federal government gets involved in something, things get worse for America. The quality of education goes down. The quality of life goes down. And so for me, it just became this, and I love politics, but I started to recognize I don't think there's any way that we can fix this with government. I don't think, even if you elect anybody, I just don't feel like we can correct course anymore.
Yeah, and this is where I'm shocked that Elon can't figure this shit out, right? Because he had his arc, right? So he obviously had that bullshit ceremony in the White House. Oh, here's your golden key to the White House. Now don't let the door hit you in the ass. And then he said some things that indicated he wasn't happy. And one of them was a CNBC interview, I think, where he was like, "Yeah, I'm not going to be investing any more money into political candidates. I'm done." And he said, "I think I've done enough." So he was clearly unhappy. He clearly saw the writing on the wall. Then the bill happened and the big fight happened. And now he's like, oh, let's start a new political party. I saw the poll on Twitter today. I'm like, dude, for somebody as smart as you are, you're really fucking dumb. Like you're trying to solve the problem of government with government. And he knows so many other things which are correct. I don't know how to reach him because
He is
he's
the
still
perfect
stuck in that paradigm.
example. He's the perfect example of anarcho-capitalism working. Space Force versus NASA. Look at what Space Force has been able to do in a decade compared
Sorry,
to,
Space Force? What are you talking about?
sorry, not Space Force, SpaceX.
SpaceX? Yeah, I was
Yes,
like confused
sorry,
for a second.
Space Force. I'm sorry, I just watched that with my kid the other day, so that's out of my mind. But if you look at what SpaceX has done versus what NASA has done, I mean, the man in just a decade was able to create a rocket that could go out into space, then come back and land perfectly where it had launched. How many shuttles have we sent into the atmosphere that we will never see back? We spent billions and billions of dollars on these things that we're never going to see. But here's a man who had independent wealth, who used that wealth to create these things and is shooting things out into space better than the federal government can. He's the perfect example of why we need free market capitalism.
That's a problem, though, dude. Is I think that people don't want it, and that's something that's been a bitter pill for me to swallow because I've been advocating for decades, man. And I just the longer America goes on, the less appetite there is for, at least that I'm seeing.
People don't know
I'm
what they want.
hoping. I think they do, though. I think people, especially nowadays, have gotten soft and they want to be taken care of, right? I think they don't want to take responsibility. And the problem I always say with liberty is that it's really one side of the coin is freedom, the other side of the same coin is responsibility. People don't want to take the responsibility piece. They want somebody else to do it for them.
I think you're right. I think that there is a softness in America. I think that we don't want to take responsibility for the things that we've done or the things that we voted on. The boomer generation is a perfect example of that. If you ask them, have they done anything wrong? All of them will say, well, no, it's not us, but yet they're the ones that put a lot of this stuff into place. Um, I think it's going to have to start with the next generation, the millennials, as we start to gain power. Uh, Gen Z, not Gen X. Gen X is kind of just apathetic at this point. They just don't give a fuck. But all of this, the generations
Hold on,
behind
I'm
us,
Gen X. Hold on, I give a fuck. I'm here trying.
for the most part, you have to admit, Gen X has been, you guys are the ones just like chain smoking cigarettes and going, we told you.
Yeah, you might not be wrong there.
We are at a pivotal point in this country where we don't really have a free market at all in anything that we do. For instance, where do you live, Ben?
I'm in Tennessee. I'm in Nashville.
Okay, I lived in Memphis. When I
I'm
was
sorry.
yeah, when I was in Memphis, there was one energy company that you could go to. Now I came back to Michigan. There is two energy companies that you can go to. One is on the east side of the state. The other is the west side of the state. So truly, depending on where you are in the state, you only have one option. They say you have a multitude of options, but that's not true. You do not. The free market says, well, we want nuclear, we want hydroelectric, we want coal, we want whatever it is, and we're going to decide for ourselves which is the best. Well, what happens when you have a ton of competition? Prices naturally go down. Americans who are suffering right now want to pay $400-500 less than what they're paying right now for energy if they could. This
I
is
mean,
this
you
is
you
where
think so, but
you
sometimes
would
I wonder.
you would think so, but this is where, like, this is my issue with the Libertarian Party, and this is something that I've talked with Stephen about, the chair of the Libertarian Party. The messaging sucks. The messaging is always about this kind of principle nonsense that they go on for 30 minutes to an hour, and they talk about really nothing that's going to help the American people. But if you talk to the American people and say, here's what the free market's going to do. We're going to cut your energy bill by 60%. We're going to cut the house the we're going to cut the cost of housing by 30%. We're going to decrease rent by allowing an open market to happen so that you have a multitude of people to rent from. We're going to allow them to build as many dwellings as they possibly can so that the cost to you is negligible. Wouldn't you like that? Wouldn't you like to live in a community where the majority of your paycheck is being kept to you so that you can build generational wealth for your family? I think most Americans would say yes. The Libertarian Party has not been able to express that. And that's where libertarians and anarcho capitalists need to come out and get their point across. Okay, you think that we just support big business. No, you're wrong. The people that are running the government now, they support big business. What we support is competition so that you can have a more affordable life, so that you can build generational wealth. When you talk to people like that, people do understand. I'm having great conversations with people out there that are like, well, yeah, if I could pay 60% less on my energy bill, absolutely, I would be for that.
Yeah, until you get to countervailing arguments, though, and this is where I get frustrated, because especially with the LP, because they're trying to get elected so they can go to Washington D.C. and fucking fail. Because we know this isn't going to work. The free market solution is the free market. It is no government. It's not having government. And so making the argument to people, it seems today like it's a complete non-starter. Everybody looks at us like we got five heads. We're the most extreme people on the planet. And meanwhile, it's like, no, we just actually understand the situation and how markets work, and have a little bit of imagination about the ways in which markets might fulfill consumer demand, right? And you almost have to paint people a picture. You can even, I've done this exercise. You go down the road, like, well, what about police? And I'm like, well, it's actually very simple. As long as you're not conducting a drug war and trying to police all these crimes that have no victim whatsoever, if you kept to protecting person and property, especially in the advent of the technology age we're in right now, and also you could have agreements between these competing firms, right? So you don't have like a territory, like a town that has a single provider. Like, do we have one cell provider in your town? No, you got a bunch. You could have shared agreements. I'm responding to police force A or whatever, and there's an incident, and you call them or get on your phone or whatever, however you engage them, and they're not close by, and there's a competitor that's close by, they can pay them. So it's similar to like towing companies and stuff. Like, there's so many different ways that you could skin this cat, but the problem is that it is complicated, and there's not a definitive answer. Everybody wants a definitive, tell me exactly how it's going to be in the future if we don't have government. It's like, dude, that's not the
And
way the free
see, I
market
don't
works.
see it like that. I see that there is a way forward. I see that there is a way to get to where we want to be. It means that all of us are going to have to negotiate a little bit. Look, Javier Milei is showing that anarcho-capitalism and libertarianism is working. He is proving through what he has done. I mean, back to back to back to back surpluses. He has
and he called
decreased.
the ball too. That's important to note
Yeah,
too. He
he
said
has
what he was going to do,
told
did it, and
everybody
had the exact
outright.
outcome that he predicted. So
Yeah,
that's important.
told everybody what he was going to do outright. But he has brought inflation down by over 200%. That's amazing. What we're going to have to do if we want to see government, if we want to see that, like at least for anarcho-capitalists, if we want to see a non-government, we want to see free market capitalism, it's going to take the Libertarian Party winning seats. It's going to take cutting the federal budget. It's going to take Congress people. We need people in Congress that are libertarians that will enact laws that will cut spending, that will end the mandatory spending on entitlements. Those things have to happen
It'll
in
never
order
happen.
for us to
I'm
have what we want. And I
sorry,
disagree. I think it
never gonna
can.
happen.
I think it can. I still
It,
hold on to the faith that
oh,
it's possible. I
I need
don't
to.
think that government is going to work. Like, I'm with you. I don't think we can have, like, if we want the perfect society, like, not the perfect society, but the perfect community, it's going to, we're going to have to end the federal government system. But in order to get there, that's what I'm focusing on, is how do we get to that point? And it's going to be proving that free market capitalism works. If you can get libertarians in there, if you can open markets, if you can show people that prices will go down, Americans will see the benefit.
So let's be rational here for a second. So we have elections, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And we can survey Congress, right? We see who is in Congress. We have this giant thing about the big, beautiful bill. There's a fight going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the signature piece of Donald Trump's legislation, who ran on cutting government, right? So what was delivered? Any cuts?
Nothing.
Nothing.
No,
Okay.
nothing.
So people voted for those people, and there's what we have, what, Massey, and you kind of got Rand Paul on a good day sometimes that have some sense. Like, are you
Rand
telling me
Paul's hit
you?
or miss.
That's what I'm saying. Like, sometimes maybe he has some sense, but like that's all you got in all of the Congress. And you're telling me you believe that the American people are going to vote en masse for a bunch of like hyper libertarian candidates going to come in there and cut government. I don't believe it, dude. I don't
So
believe it.
I don't think hyper libertarians are going to be elected. No. I think what you're going to get is middle of the road libertarians like Justin Amash are going to have to be elected first. And listen, love Amash. I think he's a great guy. He represented my district. Great congressman. Bit of a classical liberal. Not a big fan of classical liberals myself. But you're going to need people like that in Congress that understands the mechanism of the beast. For want of a better word, Amash and Massey understand the mechanism of the beast. They know what they're up against. Now, here's where I have a problem with Amash's goals, right? Like, we met, I heard his dream for the Libertarian Party, and I disagree completely with it. He wants to turn the Libertarian Party into a de facto GOP, basically. Run it like it's a political giant like the GOP, and that's not going to work. You're not going to spread libertarianism by trying to play the same game that Democrats and Republicans are playing. You are going to have to do what Malay is doing, and that means you're going to have to hurt some feelings. You're going to have to say some shit that's out there. You're going to have to get real with the people. And right now, we don't have a libertarian that's capable of that. Chase Oliver, for want of a better word, I believe he's a good man. He's a good person at heart. He has some great ideas, but he's a geek. He is a total utter geek. And that person is not going to be able to message to the people. I'm sorry, he's just not. You get people like Larry Sharp out there that, you get a lot of people that say, "Oh, I love Larry Sharp," and he wants to run on things like happiness. We got to talk about happiness. What the fuck is happiness going to do to bring down my electric bill? What the fuck is happiness going to do to bring down the cost of my groceries? This is where I get so fucking pissed off about the people that are running the Libertarian Party. You guys are not talking about shit that matters. And you're not doing it. You're trying to stitch yourself into this like perfect little area so you don't come off too offensive so that maybe people will listen to you. What did Javier Milei do during the election? Was he politically correct at all?
No, he was awesome.
That motherfucker swore every single time he was on stage. He told people to take a dick and shove it up their ass.
Hmm.
Like, we need somebody who's going to come out and is an economist, has a kind of branding. Like, even Dave Smith. Dave Smith should run for something at some point. I'm not saying president, I'm not saying Congress, whatever it is. But you're going to need somebody that can have that kind of gravitas and can talk to people in a way where you're not trying to not piss anybody off. You need to come out there and you need to go, everything that the Republicans and the Democrats are doing should be pissing you off. Here's what they've done to you. Here's what the Libertarian Party is going to do. And we're going to talk to you in 5-second intervals, right? And this is where libertarians fail. You can't keep it to 5 to 15 seconds. You've already lost the voter.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, man. Like, I really think that yeah, this is good. There's not a great way to land this, dude. But I will say this: like, libertarians generally are some pretty smart people. We get called autistic all the time, and the shoe fucking fits. We're on the right
Yeah.
side of the bell curve for the most part, and I think sometimes we forget that the average person is pretty fucking dumb. Like that old George Carlin quote. It's like, yeah, you know, it's you back.
That was my bad, man. I am so sorry. I knocked the charger off of my phone and it went away.
No worries. Well, I
You're
was
gonna have
just
such a terrible time editing all
it,
this.
it it happens, dude. It happens. No big deal. So I was just talking shit about how dumb the average person is. I don't say that like lightly. It is kind of a joke. I was quoting Carlin, but people just generally aren't super smart, and they're not clued into all of the things that the libertarian folks know. They don't understand economics really. You ask somebody what inflation is, they have no freaking clue. You ask somebody
But
what the C.
that's not their fault in a lot
No,
of
no,
in a
no.
lot of ways, Brent. That's not their fault.
I'm talking strategically though. You're talking about like, oh, well, we could just get these people to vote for this, and it's like I don't think so because the messaging, to your point, like if you can't articulate it in like 5 seconds, you've lost them, which is a testament to what I just mentioned. But ultimately, there's an easier way to get a vote, which is by promising people free stuff. Like that's the chess move that works every single time. And there's not really a counter that's based in solid economic principles or ethical principles that trumps that. It's just like if you can promise people free stuff, you're going to get their vote, full stop. And I don't see any sort of way past it. I think there's political action is completely a dead end road.
And again, I completely see where you're coming from. I do, and I look at Argentina as the perfect example for everything.
It
Things are
doesn't
going to
really
have to
map
get
on
bad.
though. This is the problem: is that Milei has way more power. The executive in Argentina has insanely more powers than the executive in the United States. So like he can do he can affair the shit out of stuff on his own, and
He's
we don't
had to
have that
do
ability.
everything through executive order. He hasn't been able to really do anything through law. If you look at it, he's having the
But that's
same
what I'm
problem.
saying
He
though.
can't.
in
Yeah.
Argentina, the executive can do that. Whereas, I mean, I know Trump tries to do that, but things get overturned, right? Because in America, we have these checks and balances, and even just because he says an executive order doesn't mean it holds up in the court of law down the road, right? So there are checks and balances, and Argentina doesn't have that. The executive is massively powerful. So I think he's
Yes,
great
you're
for
right.
showing the model will work, right? Like, look, this concept works in the real world. I fixed a country with it, but convincing a country like the United States, with all of its political machinations that are stopping someone from doing something like that,
The
I
executive
just
in the United States was never supposed to be that powerful.
correct.
It was never supposed to be, when the founders were, if you look at the Constitution, they left the executive branch kind of blank. And the reason that they did with that is because they wanted Washington to basically come up with what the executive would look like. And Washington kind of created the mold for what the executive would be. He didn't involve himself with the Senate. I think he went one time. He went one time to the Senate and asked them to do something. And when they couldn't, get on or play ball, he's just like, you know what? Cool, I'm done. I tried my thing. They don't want to listen to me. That's fine. I'm just going to make recommendations. If they pass it, they pass it. If they don't, they don't. It's entirely on them. This is the system of government that we have, and I'm going to respect that. And that was it takes a very different person to, one, have overwhelming majority of people vote for you. Two, have people wanting to basically hand you this country on a silver platter and say, nope, I'm going to serve 2 terms. I am not going to have all of this power. In fact, if you look, he relied a lot on the Supreme Court to understand what he could do legislatively. And he was not going to override the House or the Senate. And we should respect that. That's a great thing, right? Like, the whole idea behind our nation was that the states were really going to have the power. They were supposed to be the ones that were able to create the laws for themselves, and the federal government was just there to kind of hold it all together. We don't have that anymore. States' rights don't matter. The federal government is the Leviathan now. We've grown it to such a ginormous, I guess I'm losing the word, but we've grown it to where it's almost impossible to stop the growth.
I
And
would say not almost impossible. It is
it is
absolutely
impossible.
impossible.
And here's the thing. I want to believe that we can. I want to believe that we can
Why?
stop the growth.
Why though? Why? This is
Because
the
I
thing
want
that
to
I don't
have, listen,
understand.
here's why. The idea of America is a fucking great idea. A
What do you
country
mean
where,
exactly?
if you go back to the founding of this nation, the idea of this constitutional republic was a
Terrible idea.
wonderful idea. No, it
Terrible
was a
idea.
great idea, man. It was a great idea where you put the power in the hands of the people, not the majority, but you put the hands in the power of the people. So even the
But
minority
that's a lie.
has
But
a
hold
say.
on, hold on. I can't even let that, man. That's a lie, dude. That's a platitude. That's a slogan. That's not reality. The
It's
power's
not
not with the
reality
people.
anymore. It's not reality anymore.
It never
And it
was. And
hasn't been
here's why.
reality for a long time. But what
Here's
I'm
why.
saying is the philosophy that started this nation was libertarian in a massive way. The idea that the federal government was not going to get involved, like when a natural disaster happened, the federal government was not going to get involved. The federal government was not going to have a standing army. The federal government was not going to get involved in the banking industry. The federal government was not going to be involved in the taxation. These things were great philosophies. They didn't work out. They didn't turn out to way that I wish it could have. Everything gets bastardized. When people get power, they don't want to lose power. And I think that's what we have. We have a system that conservatives, as you know, if you look at the history of conservatism, what is conservatism? That's statism.
Hmm?
Conservatives were created in Europe because royalists who had lost power were terrified of free markets and they didn't want to lose what they had. So they created conservatism, which was basically this traditionalist ideology to keep the state going. And they used fun slogans and catchy things to say, well, you see, if the free market happens, look at all, you're going to have a terrible time working for this industry because they're going to treat you like shit. But what they didn't tell you is, yes, this specific company treated you like shit, but you could go to this company who treated you just fine because there was a free market for you to decide where you wanted to work. Henry Ford, he created the $5 day. That was the free market working, right? Nobody at that time, there was nobody on God's green earth that was going to give a $5 day to anybody or the weekends. God, like what the what? I'm gonna pay them more and make them work less? No. But Henry Ford saw, well, I need people to work for me. This isn't working. I need to find a way to be competitive. And so he came up with this ideology. If I pay more, one, they can afford my product, which turns them into Ford owners, which is exactly what I want. But two, it also gives them a standard of living that's a little bit higher. We didn't need unions to come in and tell people that if you vote in this union, we'll give you a contract that's worth something. It was already happening. Some industries were holding back, but there were other industries that were saying, okay, I need to be competitive. I need to get workers. Here's what I'm willing to do for you. Traditionalists don't want that to happen. They want their people to be in power. They want cronyism. They want their friends to be in charge of the industries. They want to create monopolies. That's what conservatism is. It's to keep the status quo. It's to keep the state in charge of everything. So when I started to realize this and really because I was a history major in college. And when you start looking at this and you start realizing that classical liberalism, though it started out as a wonderful ideology and against the state, what happened to classical liberalism? Eventually, what it did was stop trying to win these small gains and stand by principle and started to try to get big gains and negotiate their principles. Okay, well, we'll start doing this so long as we can get that. Politics has a way of bastardizing everybody.
Yes,
And
which I want to go circle back to what I was trying to interrupt you for,
go
which
ahead.
is like that this was not a great idea. It was an improvement upon monarchism, right? Like the monarchy was bad compared to what the founders set up, but ultimately the failure is that they inserted a monopoly on violence, right? So
Yes.
as soon as you say there's a small group of people called the government who get to act with opposite ethics as everybody else, and they can do things if they
Hmm.
work for the government that would constitute a crime if committed by the average citizen, meaning steal, kidnap, murder, like whatever,
Hmm.
right? Like at that point you've lost it. It's just it's
Sure.
the clock is ticking at that point. It's just a question of how long it takes to get until you're full blown tyranny and collapse, right?
We're
And
already
so
in full blown tyranny and collapse.
for sure, and that's my point, right? Is like you can start with the experiment, the smallest government ever in 1776, and in a couple of generations, the shit is burning down. Like that's always that's the inevitable outcome of all of this, right? And also, I don't think it goes in reverse. This is where I'm at odds with you. I think there's no way to shrink government. There's no way to reverse course. You're not going backwards. You're not shrinking shit. It is going to continue until hyperinflation and the collapse of the dollar. The whole world is going to burn, and we're going to figure out what comes next. Which is why I'm focused on trying to talk to people and be like, "Hey, can we have this conversation now instead of when the shooting starts?
Yeah.
Let's really not a great place when you have a failed nation state to try to establish liberty."
Brent, I'm with you on a lot of things, but I'm also hoping that we can stop the collapse because I don't want it to get there. One, I have a daughter. I want her to be able to
Sweet.
grow. You have kids. You want the same thing that I want. I want my kid to grow up and be successful and have all the things in order for them to live a happy life. I want them to own their property and be able to determine what they do with that property. You have a lot of people now since the Maha movement was created that want a homestead, but there are laws that say you can't do that. You can't turn your house into a farm. If you and I decide that we wanted to turn our property into a farm instead of having grass, we would be fined for that. So we need to
Oh,
get back to
hold on. You stopped too soon, brother. you would be murdered for that.
Sure. Yes.
I mean, I think that's a distinction that people don't think about enough. Is that every
You're
law
right.
is a death threat? It's an opinion backed by a death
Yes.
threat. Is all it is.
Yeah. You're 100% correct. I'm trying to be a little lighter on it. But yes, you're exactly correct. Like, how messed up is it that if we decided that we didn't want grass, but instead we wanted to grow our own food, we're going to be threatened with jail, with sometimes institutions, or death? You've got three options: jail, institutions, or death. That's fucked up. That's not right. How
We
do
all
you
accept it,
own
though. We all
property?
accept it.
But we shouldn't. Like, this is
Hmm.
what we need to start talking to people about. If you own your property and you can't do with your property what you want, how is it your property? You're
Well, it's
just
not,
basically
and this
leasing
is
it from the government.
well, and that's the other thing I was going to point out is that you don't own anything. If you pay cash for a property and you don't pay your tribute to the government via property taxes,
You lose that property.
men with guns will come and drag you out of there. And if you try to defend yourself, they'll kill you. You can't own anything in America. You don't have any property.
And I think this is where you're going to get cattle ranchers. You're going to get people that live in Montana, people that live in Colorado, people that are just sick and tired of not being able to do things with their property that they want. In an anarcho-capitalist community, you're free to turn your property into a farm so long as you don't mess up the property of your neighbor. That's all we're saying. There's no laws, there's no regulations, there's no nothing, but you could pollute your property. Go ahead, we don't fucking care. But if you start polluting to where it's hurting your neighbor, then we have to step in and we have to say, no, that's not right. Then then you can pay a fine, then you can do whatever it is that they decide those laws are going to be around the environment
Well,
for your property.
most of it's probably not going to be laws, right? I think anyone with any sense is going to be like, okay, it's way better to have a contract that specifies how we
Exactly.
adjudicate disputes, and there's going to be companies that specialize in adjudicating
Yeah.
disputes and providing
And you're going to
like
have, you won't need district attorneys. You'll have, corporate, like these corporatist lawyers, basically, that will draw up, this is how you're going to live in this community. And you're not going to poison your neighbor's lawns, or you're not going to poison your neighbor's property. You do as you see fit on your property, so long as it doesn't harm anybody else or harm other people's property. I think that people want that. I think that people want to live in that kind of a community. I think people want to live in a community where they have the freedom to decide for themselves. Here in Grand Rapids, the city won't even let you raise chickens. They don't want you to have eggs.
not
Why?
surprised.
Why does the
Well,
government get to decide for me what I can and cannot have on my property? And why
yeah.
are we okay with it? Because when I ask people and I talk to them, they say they're not okay. So then my question is, well, why are you voting for them? Why do you continuously vote for it?
And this is where I think I get so upset with the whole concept of voting, the sort of cult that people are a part of. It's because they feel like they have to accept it. Like, well, if I don't like it, well, I guess I'll just vote and I'll hope that it'll be different next. And it placates people. It makes people like they're pacified and they're numb zombies walking around and just blindly accepting their fate. And it's very frustrating. And so um, it just I don't know how to get through to people, and I think a lot of it, like you mentioned, has to do with the public education system because
Hmm.
you are indoctrinated. Think about how creepy this shit was. You're 5 years old and you walk into the classroom. Now you're chanting to the flag, and there's like pictures of dear leader on the wall and stuff. And it's like, and in retrospect, I think about this, and we all got taught the same bullshit, the same type of
Sure,
civics lessons, and
but
that's by
they
design.
hid it. They hid it under pride, American pride, patriotism.
Yep.
If you don't salute the flag and you don't say "I pledge allegiance to the flag," you're not a patriot, and that means you're
Yes.
ostracized in that group. Now, here's what I want to do. I think that we need to get rid of Sesame Street and we need to completely replace it with the Tuttle Twins. Let's start giving these kids some really amazing programs that can help deprogram them. I have my kid watch the Tuttle Twins. We just
Yeah,
watched The King of
Tuttle Twins is
Kings.
awesome.
Exactly. We watched The King of Kings about Jesus, the greatest story ever told. But it didn't specify really religion. It didn't talk about Catholicism. It didn't talk about Christianity. It talked about Judaism, a little bit. But the whole message of it was choosing how you want to live with God. And that's a beautiful fucking message. That's what the Tuttle Twins are trying to teach you. How do you want to live your life? Do you want to live your life controlled by government that tells you what you can and cannot do, that gives subsidies to all of these big businesses? We're handing out money to, this is my favorite. People hate Snow White, right? Terrible. People are saying it's a terrible movie. They're glad that it bombed. That movie is going to be subsidized by the government so that Disney doesn't have to lose money. So
That's
no
the way it works.
matter if that movie offended a whole group of people, the laws on the books and the subsidies that go to the entertainment industry makes sure that even if they have a flop, it's not going to harm them. Why?
Too big
That's
to
not free
fail.
market capitalism. Like you should, and this is where Bush kind of screwed us royally, and Obama. If GM couldn't have kept their shit together, then GM deserved to fail. And maybe Ford would have done a little bit better because Ford wasn't having an issue. I mean, they didn't take a bailout. They didn't do any of that. Ford decided that they were going to figure out a way to get out of this themselves. And they did. I'm not saying that Ford's doing great right now. They're still struggling, and they got many areas in which they do struggle. But at least they didn't take a bailout. At least they attempted to try to correct course themselves. The minute that Chrysler and GM took a bailout, what did they do? They gave them all their
Execs got bonuses.
executives all big bonuses. Our money was given to them so that they could all have golden parachutes. We need to explain to people what's actually happening in government because people don't know that this is happening. I talked to MAGA people and I said, tell me about your opinions on Snow White. And of course, they go off and about how much they hate it and it's woke and it's all that. And I'm like, you know that your taxes are subsidizing that very movie so that Disney doesn't have to take a loss on it? Wait, what? Well, that shouldn't be happening. Well, why are you voting for that, motherfucker? You should look at the people that you're voting for. You should look at the things that you're voting for, the senators that you're voting for, who they're backed by. And it's really not hard when you can see almost all of these senators are connected to those three entities that we talked about early on: BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street. You keep seeing these three things over and over and over again in federal government. And, what really broke me from Trump and really broke me from Maha was Trump put a shit ton of pharma lobbyists in his administration, but he had a bunch of banker bros in his administration, tons of people from Vanguard and tons of people from BlackRock. And at that moment, I knew nothing was going to change. It was all going to be the same old shit no matter what. And I saw Kennedy completely do a 180 from from where he was. This man who said we're going to stop the COVID vaccine. We're going to not, it's not going to be recommended. You can have it if you want it, but we're not going to recommend that stuff. Completely abandoned that. CDC is still recommending that right now. You can go on the CDC website and saying, stay up to date on your COVID vaccine.
Yep.
The FDA just approved a new mRNA vaccine, even though we know mRNA technology is having issues and causing heart problems, all kinds of other things within the community with young men, young women. You have healthy people that are dropping dead from mRNA, and Kennedy completely abandoned the vaccine fight, and
Yep. I
he's
got.
going to food.
Oh, totally. Yeah, it's all Fruit Loops, and Jack Cruz has been all over this. I don't know if you follow Jack at all, but he
I
called
haven't.
that ball months and months ago. Yeah, you should actually watch that episode. If you don't like Cali Means, he
I hate Cali
eviscerated.
beans.
It was Jack Cruz and Mary Bowden and
I
Cali
love Dr.
Means.
Mary. Mary's great.
Those three were on Danny Jones' podcast, and if you want to see, I think it's the best podcast in the last 5 years. Like Jack
Do
Cruz.
they have Cali beans on?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. They were
Yes,
in
I
the
did. I
same
did see
room.
that. Yeah, I saw that.
That
Yeah,
Yeah, so Jack called that one way in advance, and he said that the shit with Bobby's is nonsense. His thing is a maha is haha. He's just like it's a
it
complete joke.
is. When you go and you listen to Bobby Kennedy, he's really good at talking to people and making you feel nostalgic. That's what he's good at. He makes you feel like we're in this bygone era that his uncle had. We can go back to this bygone era and we can rein in the government. But when I started going over a lot of his speeches and started looking at a lot of the stuff that he did, I started to realize, like, holy shit, he was going to expand the government too.
Hmm?
He was going
He's
to
a commie
increase
too.
spending. He's going to expand, increase spending by a
Wants to
hell of
ban
a lot
guns.
more than Trump would have. And I started looking around, going like, "What the fuck am I doing?" And then I got into an argument with Austin Peterson, and he finally just called my ass out, man. He just called me out and said, "Bryce, you're full of fucking shit. You're supporting people, and you don't even know what you are." And he told me, "You believe in an individual. You think an individual is going to save you. If you believe in individuals, you have no principles. So that means you're just going to go all over the place. You're going to sway with the wind, and you're going to think that a populist is going to come in and be able to do all these things that they're never going to ever be able to do." And so he made me. He didn't make me, but he suggested read Milton, read Rothbard, read Mises. And I said, okay, you know what, dude, I have a lot of respect for Austin Peterson. He's somebody that I've had respect for ever since I watched the primaries in the Libertarian Party online. He's a dynamo guy. So I started reading Milton Friedman. And I liked what I was reading, but it wasn't until I got to Rothbard that I really
Got to
started
do
going
it.
down this hole, man. Like I went down this ANCAP hole, and he made me realize that government is just this giant facade. It doesn't really exist, but it exists for the elites. It's not for the regular human beings like me and you. It's for elites to stay elite. And if we're going to have a successful community, we can't have a federal system. We got to get rid of the state completely. And the more and more I looked at it, he's bringing up history. I mean, he's taking things that I've known for a really long time, but never really looked at it that way. Bismarck. I've always thought, oh, God, Bismarck was such a brilliant tactician. He was such a brilliant leader, but really, the guy was a scumbag. He created the conservative movement to keep the royalists in power and to keep the state fluctuating. He wanted to stop free market capitalism. He saw that as a means to an end for basically the military industrial complex that ran Germany at that time. And I was like, and that was all in the Libertarian Manifesto. And it's like hitting me in the face. Like all of these people that I've grown up loving to read about were just the worst motherfuckers that you could have ever fucking imagined. Like they were just rotten to the core. Even JFK, for as much people that say JFK was a good guy, that man expanded the state. He expanded the federal government. He spent more money than we had. He was doing the exact same things that were hurting everyday American people. But we're taught to believe that this person he's one of us. He's going to work for us. And what Rothbard made me really realize is that elites are never for us. Elites are for themselves. They're always going to look out for themselves. They're always going to look out for their cronies, and that's how it is. And when I started looking throughout history, that's exactly what has happened in American history. Elitists have always looked out for their cronies. They have always made sure that their people are taken care of and screw the American people. And anytime a free market opens, because we've had a president that decides, hey, we need to open up the free markets. What happens the very next election when they're no longer around? all of that stuff goes to the wind. Calvin Coolidge was probably the last decent president that we had. Cut the size of the federal government, cut the size of spending, cut budgets all the way around. But then came Herbert Hoover. And what did Hoover do the minute things started, like a recession started happening? He increased the size of the government and started spending all of the money that Calvin Coolidge had collected. Like, oh, this surplus that Coolidge had given the United States was gone within a matter of 3 years because of Herbert Hoover. And balls to the wind when FDR came in. That, I think the real problem is Roosevelt. Roosevelt started what every president since has done, and that is put your faith in the state, put your faith in me, put your faith in the federal government. Reagan said, "Don't trust the federal government," but what did he do? He expanded the federal government. He expanded the
Absolutely.
military-industrial complex. He increased spending by 200%. Reagan
And
was
the
full of
fucker
shit.
banned machine guns. Don't forget
Yep.
that.
Oh yeah. Oh, he was terrible. And you've got conservatives and people who come out and say this is the greatest. This is the president that we should look at. And I started off as a Republican, and I've always been a Coolidge guy. And my mind is, well, why not hold up Coolidge? Coolidge was way better than any of these people. He actually shrunk government, and it didn't
That's
last
why.
long.
There's your answer.
It didn't last long. We had Harding, we had Coolidge. Both of them shrank government, but it didn't last long. Once those two were out of office, all of that shit was gone. And this is where I started to realize that, like, we're at the like you said, Brent, we're at the point of no return. My hope is, and this is, I guess, and this is, I didn't articulate it well. I don't think that the Libertarian Party can come in and immediately start shrinking the size of government. My hope is that they can put some brakes on it, so that it's
What does
not
that look
just.
like, though? What does that mean? What breaks? It
I,
sounds like a marketing term, man.
it is a marketing term, and I've been in marketing for a good chunk of my career, so I use terms like that. But
And I'm an
what I'm hoping
empiricist. I'm like, I want rubber meet road. Tell me what we're talking about.
what I'm hoping for is a drastic cut in spending, where we recognize that we can no longer have mandatory spending anymore, and that Congress has to vote to repeal those mandatory spendings. So it's only going to be Congress that can do that. And right now, no, not the Republicans and the Democrats are not willing to do that. They won't touch entitlements. Somebody has to. Somebody has to
Nobody's
come
going
in
to,
and
man.
no,
Nobody's
I
going
agree with
to.
you. I listen. I agree with you. I just naively have a hope that it
Oh,
can happen before we just completely deteriorate. Like,
what's that line from Shawshank Redemption? Was a little bit of hope is a dangerous thing.
oh yeah,
I
yeah.
believe it, man.
Hope is the most dangerous thing that you could possibly have, and I think Obama proved that. I guess I think of my daughter. I really do, and whenever I do anything, I think of her, and I worry about what she's going to inherit. I worry about what her life is going to look like. And for me, it's like, okay, I'm 35, going to be 36. Almost half of my life is gone. Everything that I do now is for her. What is her future going to look like? What is her, and that's why I refuse to give up fighting in government.
Yeah.
That's the
Well, hold
only
on.
reason.
And I feel you, man. Like I got 3 daughters. They're all young adults. They're everything to me, and I think about the same thing. That's why I fight. But the thing is, this is one of the reasons I force myself to stay connected to reality, because reality. What's that Ayn Rand quote? It says you can ignore reality, but you can't ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. So we can fool ourselves into thinking that governments, maybe we can do something, right? But I don't think it's black pilled at all to just abandon that notion and say, okay, cold reality. My kids are in this world right now. There's something bad coming. What can I do to disrupt it? And that's why I'm trying to have these conversations with people, man, because I think, to your point, like, we do not want a failed nation state and then trying to figure out what we're going to do afterwards. It usually ends up with massive bloodshed,
Yep.
horrible economic
Civil War.
conditions, Civil war, and then also the thing that comes after it, if it's not been intentionally, moved towards, it ends up being worse than the thing that collapsed, right? And so that's what I'm trying to avoid. I'm trying to have these conversations now and saying, hey, everybody, let's get our shit together so we don't end up there.
So I look at history, and I told you I'm a history nerd. Throughout the known history, we have had people that have been able to come in and change the complete direction of an empire, of a country, overnight. Over fucking night. Julius Caesar. If it wasn't for him, the Roman Republic probably would have stood. But what happened? Caesar was articulate. Caesar was one of them. He portrayed himself as one of the people, and he gave people what they wanted, basically what they wanted to hear. So he was able to manipulate power that way. Napoleon Bonaparte was the same way, right? Napoleon came out and said, "I'm one of you. I was just a grunt. Look at me. I'm one of the people," and was able to take power. Hitler, all of these people were able to turn a country over like that on a dime. And so my question then becomes, why can't libertarianism do the same thing?
Believe
If
it
history
can.
has proved itself.
You are touching on what I'm getting at, dude, and why I'm so pissed off at Elon, because I think he is that type of figure who could bring broad scale visibility into these ideas. I'm not saying this is why I get so pissed when he's talking about we're going to form a new political party, we're going to mess them up in the midterms, and it's like, dude, you have the biggest platform in the world. Literally, you're running this giant social media platform. You have the eyes of the whole world on you in this critical moment. And you could do something. We could talk about this from a libertarian perspective. We could talk about maybe we do something different. Maybe we consider the free market. And he knows a lot of this information. I know. I see him retweeting Rothbard stuff. And I see him retweeting all these things that I'm like, dude, like Ron Paul, like he's there. He's right there. And it's like, dude, you're so far off though. Please come back, Elon.
This is what we need to do. This is what I've been talking with Stephen about, the chair of the Libertarian Party. We need to get people like Ron Paul back in the mix. We need to get them vested in the party again. Ron Paul was treated very poorly, and I think an overture needs to be made. And then the next thing that I think they need to do, and I told them this, they need to reach out to Nicole Shanahan. They need to try to bring the techno-libertarians into the fold. Because if you look at what she has done, she has gone from a progressive Democrat to a techno-libertarian. And all it did was take a conversation with Ron Paul to completely change her mind and say, no, we need to stop deregulating. We need to do deregulation. We need to get the government out of farming. We need to get the government out of, all of the industries. We need to get them out. We need to bring these people in. And we need to find a way to either help them mold candidates or give money to certain candidates that they feel comfortable with. My thinking is the guy in Arkansas, what's his name? White? You there?
Sorry, you were cutting out there for a second. I couldn't hear anything.
Can you hear me now?
Something about Arkansas.
Yeah. Do you remember the guy that was running for Congress for the Libertarian Party? His last name was White.
No, I don't follow the LP at all.
All right. Well, listen, he was basically the Republicans had decided they weren't going to even try to run. So it was between him and the Democrat. He ran a great campaign.
Maybe, but I think it would only be from a Ron Paul perspective where you use the bully pulpit to advance ideas. Like I swear, like I can't, and it might have to go that route. I'm not exactly sure. There's no principles. Well, hey, yeah, I'm open to any and all possibilities, man. So I'll keep my eye on that, and I hope to have Austin on the show sometime. We've been flirting back and forth on Twitter, so maybe I'll get him on at some point. But it sounds like interesting. I hope so. Austin, hit me up, man. I'm going to ping him on Twitter and see if he's available. But I really enjoyed the conversation. Apologies, but I have a hard stop. I'm actually over right now. So why don't you give people a chance to find out where to find you online in case they don't know. You'll get more, man. They'll come back. You just need to find the right people. So Yeah, and I got to have you back, man. We feel like we just scratched the surface. I definitely want to keep going, and I look forward to doing some more back and forth on Twitter with you, man. All right, dude, take it easy. Hit bye.